Jason Syversen, welcome to the Sports Management Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited to talk to you today. You are the CEO of Sports Visio, a sports tech company that provides computer vision, AI, cloud, and mobile interfaces. It's very useful for basketball. So can you tell us a little bit about why you founded this company and what do you do?
Yeah, so I had sold a company and moved into investing and was debating what to do kind of with the rest of my life, and got to the point where I actually ran for state senate in New Hampshire, lost by 3% to the incumbent who raised $200,000 to my $100,000. And I was quite happy with the outcome. I was not a guy who was excited about politics, but did it to try to serve. But when I knew I had that time after losing the race and was getting to the point where investing from a portfolio perspective, I was thinking I should probably slow down, early stage tech investing, kind of debating what to do, thought of raising a venture fund. I did well in my last company and I've done well with some of the investments, but it was early. I grew up pretty poor, so didn't have a strong network of folks I could reach out to. And around that time, I had this idea for a new company. I've been playing basketball for about 30 years. Excuse me. And I have 6 children. They all played basketball. They all played soccer and dabbled in some other sports. So I've been a coach for, 18 years, a parent, of kids playing sports for about that time. And realized there's just a huge need, as an engineer who was coaching and as a player, I'm always analyzing myself in the game and how I could do better and how I could learn, and getting access to good video and stats and analytics is, extremely challenging outside of high level programs. And the existing solutions that are out there, like a Huddle or Synergy, are super expensive, $50 to $80 a game, because they pay people overseas to kind of watch the video and then manually type it into an app, and then you get it a day later. So around that time, I saw an ad for a product called Pivo, which is a little Bluetooth controlled motorized actuator. And they have some simple AI on the phone. So it'll kind of pan back and forth. And in their commercials, they show a girl doing a cooking video or yoga or riding a horse. And then they showed a young man doing a basketball layup. I was like, so I went online, I Googled it. I was like, could you use this for games? And all the comments were like, yeah, no, it gets lost in a crowd, that it just pans all over the place and can't pay attention to where the ball is. So I was like, what if I actually, I used to work at DARPA, which was this building here before I started my company. And so I know a bunch of AI, PhD research people that are, leaders in the US. So I called someone, I'm like, hey, how hard would this be to build a company where we could use AI and computer vision to automatically create stats and video highlights for sports, starting with basketball and looking at other sports. And they all said, yeah, you could totally do that. I was like, well, is this 50 people for 10 years? Are we talking a couple of people on a weekend? And they said, no, you're probably talking 3-4 people for a year, high-end folks, to get a prototype out the door, and then you could kind of grow from there. And so I called some customers. I was like, look, is this something you would pay for? And they were unanimous in their enthusiasm and offering to pay 50% more than I was going to charge. So I analyzed the market and concluded it's probably a $1.5 billion market just for basketball. And then you add in soccer, or football as the rest of the world calls it, and hockey, lacrosse, American football, baseball. It's a $10 billion plus market, which is enough to be a venture scale business that has high return for the investment. So I put $500,000 of my retirement money into starting the company, and built a team, raised $600,000 in angel investments. And we did a $2.5 million pre-seed round with an AI fund out of Boston last year. And then we just closed a $3 million round with Sapphire Sport as we launched the product, and we're trying to bring it out to the broader market and to customers.
That's so exciting. So you mentioned some other sports there. So why basketball? Why start with basketball?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I got the idea because I just know that sport the best. But I'm, doing this as a business, and my hope is to donate the majority of whatever I make from the company to charity. I did that with my last company. So I don't need the income personally, although I need to pay myself back for what I put in. Really, my goal here is to have an impact on the charitable foundations and the charitable organizations we support from our foundation. So my goal is I want to make as much money as possible from this business, right? My hope is to increase what we're giving significantly. And to do that, we need to have a good exit. So it was a business decision, not just, oh, I like sports and this would be a fun, post-career, post-retirement hobby. It's a lot of work, and there's time you miss kids' activities and you're running around traveling for a job. But if there's a broader sense of purpose, then it makes sense. So the first thing I did after that, after analyzing the basketball market and realizing there was something there, I said, all right, I know basketball, but it doesn't mean it's the best sport. Maybe there's another sport that is more attractive. So I did a market analysis, and some sports have a competitive solution. There's a cool company called Swing Vision that's doing it for tennis. There's a few companies doing it for soccer. I've got Veo, which is like an AI camera, and they don't really do stats, but they can do some highlight creation. You have Trace, where you have hardware tags. You got to stick in shin guards and charge them every night. But they can give very precise data because they're using RFID tags. So each sport has, hockey, I think, has Sports IQ, or Sports Logic, I think they're called, that is doing some really cool work with AI. They published some papers. But basketball really didn't have anything outside of Second Spectrum and some of the NBA solutions. But as soon as you move down market, it's all manual. And it's a very large market. Basketball has a huge global population, probably the second largest market after soccer globally for something like this. So you've got a very large market with no incumbent solution, taking a similar approach, and the opportunity there. So yeah, it seemed to make sense to start there, and then we can expand. It also has a large, like, people have talked to us about American football, but that's a much more challenging technical problem. They play at night, outdoors, in rain. It's only a U.S. market. There's not like a men's league market. There's not a U club market like there is in basketball. You really have, middle school, high school, college, pro, and that's it. You don't have kind of as much diversity. You don't have a global market as well. So it makes it a much more narrow opportunity.
Yeah, that makes sense. So this is targeted to amateur and youth players more than the pros, right?
That's right. Yeah, we have had some pro clubs that we've talked to both in the NBA and overseas. The NBA, we're not competing today for their core stats platform, but more for like practices, like camp programs they run, things like that, because they don't want to spend their multi-$100,000, multi-million-dollar contracts that they have with the companies like Second Spectrum. They are interested in just saying, hey, look, we're bringing a low cost alternative to those larger companies that bring access to the mass market. So all the way down to a middle school, a casual men's league, church leagues, high schools, colleges. We can offer a lot of the capability of alternatives, but at a fraction of the price, and get it in the hands of everyone who wants, automated stats and highlights. And we'll create highlights for every single play, which is pretty neat. A lot of the alternatives, if you pay someone to sit there, they might be able to manually type in for the same or maybe a little bit more money, just stat sheet, then you don't get highlight clips. So we do, you get the full game and you get a clip for every single play, and you get all the stats all in an app, and some other really cool features we're developing too.
So you talked about price. It's a cheaper version than if someone is entering everything manually. You have also said that it's more accessible and less equipment needed. So can we talk a little bit about what is it that you need and how does it work?
Yeah, great question. Sapphire actually told us that part of the reason they chose to invest in us is because we are a software-only solution. Like, we don't make our own hardware. There's no RFID tags. There's no special camera required. We can take any video solution that someone has in general. I mean, I say any, if it's a analog tape or something, or you're grabbing it and you're shaking the camera the whole time, that's probably not going to work real well. But a standard iPhone, Android phone, your own sports camera, your own handheld Sony camera or something, any of those solutions work, and we can feed that into our system. You just got to upload it to our cloud. We process the game, and then we put the stats out to an app. So we actually have an app for Android and iPhone you can use to help with the recording process, but you don't have to. And we are looking at trying to find a couple of good sports camera partners that could be a complement to what we're doing. We could kind of offer on our website to help give people an idea of a good option if they don't have an incumbent solution. But we can totally work with whatever they like to use.
Yeah, so I read that you said some time ago that the app was 70 to 99% accurate, I think it said. So what does that mean? What is the accuracy like reflecting, and also what is the goal long term?
Yeah, great question. So it really depends on what type of statistic you're looking for. So things like, our AI does things like automatically find the hoop, to automatically track the ball, to identify the jersey number, to identify who has possession of the ball, to identify a shot went up, who shot the ball, did the ball go in, was it a 2-pointer, was it a 2-pointer or 3-pointer, depending on where they shot it from, or a foul shot, was that a rebound, things like that. So each of those statistics has its own accuracy metric associated with it, which are driven by camera angle occlusion, which is a technical term for when someone blocks the camera and you can't really see the play as well. And our jersey, recognizing algorithm and is driven by the lighting and the type of jersey and things like that. So it's very dependent on the environment, but in general, all the stats are minimum of kind of 70 to 80%, and some go as high as 99 point something, 100% for some of the simpler, clean algorithms. Again, it depends on the environment and the angle and things like that. So our goal is to be 95+% for everything consistently, with a goal, of course, getting to 99 point something percent. Basically, my argument is anything that humans can do, we should be able to do as well or better. And we've already seen early cases where we have outperformed humans, which has led to some awkward scenarios where the official scoreboard was incorrect and they missed a basket during the game. And then we'll provide the data back to the customer and they've been like, wait, this doesn't match the official scoreboard. And we're like, we know that's because they missed a basket in the middle of the game. They're like, well, you have to make it match. I'm like, well, you tell me which correct basket to delete, because we have video evidence of every single play that we're giving you. So it's a fascinating kind of problem when you have AI starting to outperform the poorly sometimes performing humans in the venue when the game happened.
Yeah, for sure. So how customizable is it afterwards? Let's say my kid played a game and I want to see only his or her highlights, for example. Can I do that? And what are the type of
Absolutely. Yeah, it's sortable. You can sort by, your kids' individual made baskets. You can sort by, say it's a men's league and you want to see your own 3-pointers. You want to see your buddies' blocks. You can go to a team. You can sort by player. You can filter by number. You can sort by made shot, missed shot. You can select what highlight clips you want. We actually auto build like a highlight reel clip now, which is a new feature we just rolled out. So that way at the end of a game, you can actually see all your plays concatenated together in a little, 2 or 3 minute reel of just those plays. We had a player complaining. They're like, well, why does it include all my missed shots? I just want to see all my made shots. We're like, all right, well, we can delete that. But we can take all those stats and automatically build those and do that right now, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned AI can outperform humans already, and I guess that it's a scare in society nowadays, how powerful is AI?
Yeah.
So in your mind, who's someone who is a professional, who is working with this every day, where do you see AI in the sports industry now going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to take larger and larger role, right? So, we're starting at what I think is the tip of the iceberg, which is just that early foray into some of the things that humans do today. And they're very expensive and fairly slow. But in the future, I'm envisioning that expanding rapidly to other new products that just don't exist today. For example, we already have the capability to do slow-mo instant replay of every basket in venue. So again, you can do that at a pro game where you have a production broadcast crew there and you have a team of people. but we could offer it at a lower level college or an overseas pro team or a high school or men's league or whatever, AU tournament, where you throw a $80 TV on a sideline and we're kind of throwing up on the screen replays of every basket that was made, which is not a product that people think about today because no human, it just is so unscalable that people don't even consider pursuing it. But because of AI, it's going to bring access to a bunch of really cool technologies that don't exist today. So I think if you look at maybe the NBA and some of the top places where they have a lot of money to spend, and they do have dozens of people that can run a broadcast crew and dozens of people that can run special effects and graphics and analytics and breakdowns and things like that. I think where you'll see a lot of AI is that technology flowing down market to, smaller pro clubs, to colleges, to men's leagues, all the way down to middle schoolers, right? So technology that exists at that level, but will flow all the way down. But I think it's going to be across the board. I mean, I've seen some companies that are trying to use technology to automate like roster management, scouting. There's a lot of work in training, biometrics and form analysis and how people do things, and especially by other sports. So yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of transformation around. I think people will be surprised when they look back and like, wow, I used to do that by hand, really? Even baseball, right? And tennis, I think it's been shocking how long it's taken us to adopt, robo line calling and things like that, where it's such a classic problem for computer vision, right? You have a ball and it has to move into a space in physical world, and you can really clearly define that with precision cameras we've had for 10 years. So I think it just took people a little time to embrace change, but once we do, like, there's no going back because it's so much more accurate.
Yeah, I like that. And of course, like goal line technology and Hawkeye in tennis and so forth. But as you just mentioned, there's so many more opportunities with AI in sports.
Yep, exactly.
Are you using AI within your company somehow to make things easier?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we've played with it. We aren't using it a ton, but we do. Some of the ways you're seeing their AI is a large field, right? It just stands for computerized functionality that mimics human intelligence in different domains. Our specialty and focus of our products are around computer vision and using video and images to process that content and extract value. But there's a lot of really exciting work that's happened in the last couple of years in what they call LLMs, large language models, where you can use generative adversarial networks or GANs to create content and then rank them against each other. And it uses it to pick very intelligent content. So things like chatbots or human assistants, analyzing large code bases and then generating code for those. With my background in cybersecurity, I've seen some exciting things where they're actually feeding in code, asking an AI system to find a vulnerability in the code and then generate an exploit against that code, and it actually works. So that's stuff that I saw discussed and argued about when I was at DARPA 15 years ago, and people were like, that's impossible. AI will never be able to do these kinds of things. You always have to have a human handcrafting these artisan attacks. And the reality is that's not the case. And we're seeing that today. The AI has made some very significant jumps in, but that's very much in the text world. There's also been some really exciting work in image creation. So some of the things we're envisioning we could do is actually use those systems to generate like models around. So say you want to make it look like your basketball game or your hockey game was in the Roman Colosseum, right? We could use LLM type models or some of these like DALL-E 2 or some of these generative AI systems to create an environment and then synthetically embed that and replace, the players on the playing surface into this new environment, which I think will be really fascinating when we start to see that happening. That's not going to happen tomorrow, but it could be in a year or two, right? This is really right around the corner.
Yeah. When you talk about this, I see you're really, excited about it. You're passionate about it. You have the money. You have sold, several companies. You give away a lot, you said, to charity. You're a philanthropist. So, and obviously very passionate about AI. So what is your biggest drive with founding a new company and, you know, making it successful, selling it and so forth? What is it that drives you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I grew up very poor in northeastern United States in a state called Maine, and my parents had moved there for quality of life reasons, and had a job. My dad had a job working for the paper mills, and we bought a really nice house up on the ocean in the middle of nowhere, and ended up, you know, he lost his job, and then we couldn't pay our mortgage, so we're cutting like frozen blocks of wood in the middle of winter, and wearing a coat indoors, and you know, just crazy financial duress. Bill collectors calling, ended up losing the house at the bank, and bouncing around renting. Like we were homeless for a summer, living in someone's pop-up trailer in their backyard. I remember my wife yelling at me when we got married because I have holes in my socks. I'm like, why are you yelling at me? I'm like, I just wear them. She was like, no, you have multiple holes. I'm like, well, yeah, they're tube socks. You just keep rotating them until they fall apart. Like that's what you do. And her face kind of softened, and she realized like, oh, this is a thing because you grew up really poor. It's like, no, we throw socks out when they get holes in them. I was like, that's so wasteful. It didn't occur to me that that was not normal behavior. So that background has, you know, but I've been a Christian since I was a kid, and really feel strongly that we're on earth for a larger purpose than just, you know, he who dies with the most toys wins. I really don't believe that model. And as a kid growing up, you know, got to experience, you can have joy if you have a loving family. Our church helped build an orphanage down in Haiti, and you go down there and you realize people literally have nothing, like dirt floors, tiny houses, barely enough food to eat. And yet people are smiling and laughing, and they're just so joyful to see you. And, you know, then you come to the US and people are dour. I mean, you and I were talking earlier about going to New York. A lot of grumpy people in New York City, even though it's a place with so much wealth and opportunity. Wealth and resources don't equate to happiness. It really is other things in life, like family and your faith, and the place you live and things like that, being free from, you know, attack and war. So yeah, so because of that, you know, my wife and I are pretty excited about using the resources that we've had to, I think summarizing, a lot of people make faith and religion very complicated. And for me, there's a verse in the Bible where it says, you know, love God, love your neighbor as yourself. Like the entire scripture can be summed up in that. So if you take that concept, it's pretty simple to understand. So we you know, have a nice home and nothing audacious, but big enough for our large family, and get pay our bills. And for that, everything above that, we want to use for kind of impact. My wife started a group fighting human trafficking. Then she started a different group fighting sexual exploitation. We were foster parents. We've adopted our youngest two boys, and we wanted to kind of use that model to help support other people that are doing amazing things. So we're fighting sexual exploitation, helping with poverty relief overseas, helping, you know, in third world countries and programs like that. So yeah, it's exciting to be able to take a very cool business and love of technology and business and entrepreneurship and turn that into something that's more mission oriented and able to have an impact for people that need help. Because people, you know, people in Haiti, it's not their fault when they're born in that environment. They can work hard and try their best, but it's not like America, where if you know, work hard and do well at school and have a plan in life, that you can do well. And I can testify to that. But it's not like that in Haiti, when there's like no road and there's, you know, criminals out there robbing the few people that have any tiny success. It's very difficult to get ahead. So what can we do to try to help those folks that are in those situations?
That's amazing. Sorry, that's amazing. You say you grew up poor, and of course that has shaped you in a way. You gave the analogy with the sock, but you know, it's so much more than that. It's like maybe you appreciate things more. For example, now your kids are growing up in a different environment. So, but are you, you know, how are you transferring your, how do you say, memories or your
Values,
experiences?
system, and like appreciation for those things. I mean,
Exactly.
yeah, it's a topic my wife and I think about often, and I don't think we've done a great job at it. It's really challenging as a parent. Like, what do? Do you like make your kids live in the shed in the back and be like, hey, this is what it's like for someone who's poor, and like that you don't want to do that. You want to bless your kids, and you know, if we're going on a trip to Europe somewhere, like we want to bring them with us. And you know, if they want to, the school has a ski team, like we're not going to say you can't go skiing like your dad because he didn't have any money. Like I remember going on a ski trip one time, my dad had found a pair of skis on the side of the road, and he got it for me, and they like literally fell off the chairlift while I was on the chairlift and almost hit someone. And that when I went to take them up to the rental shop, they're like, dude, we can't fix these. They're so old. Like, we don't even support these anymore. I was like, well, I don't have any money. And they're like, well, and they sold me a pair of like cheap rentals for very inexpensive. So I was able to have my own pair. But, I don't want my kids to have to go through that, but I also want them to have the same values about, appreciating what they've been given. So there are some things we're doing. We're not giving them, any money. A lot of people, some folks that I've met that are successful have given me a little gentle pushback, or at least wide-eyed, incredulous looks. And they're like, "What? You're no trust fund for your kids?" And we're like, "No, I'm not giving them like $1 when they graduate. I mean, give them $100 when they graduate for like graduation gift or something." But they're getting an incredibly privileged opportunity, right? They're growing up with a home with financial needs met and opportunities to do travel sports and music lessons and get to travel the world. And, I'll open doors for them and make connections and give them mentoring and advice. But they live in a country with tremendous opportunity. And for me, there's this opportunity cost. If I'm giving $1 million to each kid so they don't have to work or something, that's literally $1 million that's not going to fund, that orphanage in Haiti that our church built costs $8,000 to build and $500 a month to run. Like, if you have $1 million, how many orphanages could you fund in a place like that are helping? There's 32 kids who live in this orphanage. So like, I'm going to take that away from those kids so I can give it to my kids so they can grow up entitled and unmotivated. I'm like, that does not make sense to me. It's not that I don't love them. If they ever hit hard times, like, I'm going to be there for them and support them. But I don't think it's loving, honestly, to them to take away their desire to have purpose and meaning in life and just sit around so they can surf the web all day or something. So we've tried to pass it on. We've served at a local food pantry and a soup kitchen with them so they can experience some of the opportunity to serve, and that people don't all live in the same way we do. We've taken all 4 of our older kids on missions trips. Our oldest 2 went to Haiti with us, and then our next 2, we went to Bulgaria and worked with the Roma population there. And, that helped open their eyes. That to me was actually more sad than going to Haiti, because in Haiti, like, everyone's super poor outside of like, 1,000 people that take all the wealth or whatever. But in Bulgaria, it's a first world country for the most part. European cities, people driving Audis and BMWs around. And then you drive like 5 miles outside the city and you're in this rural village with people walking around with donkeys and no shoes and 10 by 20 huts because they're flat out racist. Like, and they'll say like, oh, well, Roma people, like, they're all drunk, lazy, stupid people who just rob. And it's pervasive mentality in their, to be in the modern world and see blatant racism and then the effects it has on those communities is pretty devastating. And I think more sad than Haiti, where it's like, it's such an interlocked problem. There's no one solution. But in a place like Bulgaria, it's like, wow, all you have to do is be kind to those communities and give them opportunity. And you'll see them, like, they go to school, but a lot of them drop out because they're all treated like crap. And the teacher's like, oh yeah, you didn't get this done because you're a lying cheat and you're stupid. And like, you tell kids that, like, how long do you think they're going to stick around in school? Yeah. So it was super, super sad. So yeah, so we try to bring them on those trips and build in a work ethic, but we don't give them iPhones or things like that. They have to save up their own money if they get those things. And our son, even in college, after he dropped out of college, we had a rule: you have to be in school or you have to be working. And he wasn't doing either. He's playing video games. And we told him he was going to have to move out if he didn't get a job. And months went by, didn't get a job. And so that was like the saddest day for my wife and I. We had to kick him out of the house. And he's like posting on his Instagram. He's like, look, I'm at the park. What am I going to do? I'm like homeless. We're like, dude, like, you're not going to be that kid who sits around living off mom and dad playing video games. Like, you have to work. You got to get a life. We live in New Hampshire, has the lowest unemployment rate in the entire United States of America, tied with North Dakota at like 1.8%. If you want a job, you can get a job. And I would tell my son that. It's like, well, I don't want to work there. Like, I'm not going to work at Dunkin' Donuts. I'm like, I mean, great, you can work wherever you want, but you can't just sit around and do nothing. So that was kind of a tough experience and kind of tough love you have to do as a parent. And then he finally went off and he got a job and things are good. And he's applying for a really cool job right now. But yeah, those are hard conversations and situations to have to go through. But I think it's best for him in the long run and hopefully better for society because he's got a lot to offer.
Yeah, for sure. Going back to, you said you lost your house when the family the bank took the house.
Yep.
From how old were you then?
I think I was like 10. We bought
10.
the house. No, I was probably a little older than that because I think we bought the house when I was 9, and we'd lived there for at least probably 2 or 3 years before, so I think the problem, he lost the job shortly after we bought it.
Mm.
But I was pretty young. I just know we lived there for 3-ish years, somewhere between 2 and 4. And,
Mm.
it was fine at first, but then very quickly I remember those memories of like being out with an awl and like frozen blocks of wood and sometimes wearing our coats indoors. And my dad was home for a while, and he's super talented, fellow Scandinavian like yourself. And we ripped down some ceiling stuff in our house, and he actually took all the scrap wood and things like that, and he built this giant like 2 foot by 2 foot by 3 foot high like wooden castle that we could play Playmobil in. And so I remember as a kid selfishly kind of enjoying the fact when he was out of work, he was like, oh, he was super handy, he's building all these cool things for my brother and I.
Yeah,
Didn't fully process that we also might have problems getting food and things like that, but those are not things you worry about as much as a little kid.
of course. So from there, 12 years old, to being 30 years old with $100 million portfolio, those 18 years, what happened there?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, my parents were both, my dad was educated. My mom barely graduated high school, but she was, hardworking and intelligent. And after I ended up going to college, she went back and got a finance degree, got an MBA, runs her own financial planning firm now up in Maine. So I had parents with potential. They were just in a really tough economic area. So I was able to, my mom homeschooled my brother and I, so we got a great education. By the time I graduated high school, I'd probably read between 2,000 and 3,000 books. I was an Eagle Scout, involved in other community things, and so I had a good resume and did well on the SAT. So I was able to get a free ride at University of Maine for computer engineering. So I got an undergrad in computer engineering, came down to New Hampshire, joined Lockheed Martin. They have an electronic warfare company there. And while working there, I was in a leadership program where you do rotations every 6 months and get a week-long leadership conference while going to grad school, and they pay for that. So I got a master's in electrical engineering, focused in crypto and network security. And, started hacking the company network and, finding vulnerabilities and things and reporting them to the IT team. They're like, no, that's not an issue. And I would explain why it was. And they're like, prove it. I was like, all right, cool. I was hoping you'd say that. Give me that in writing and I'll go do that. So I ended up hacking the corporate network of 4,000 people and getting domain administrator privileges. And so that got me a reputation inside the company as kind of the resident hacker guy. And that led to me starting a cyber warfare group, like a startup company inside of the company in my 20s with an older gentleman named Pete Ryder. So Pete got the funding from corporate management to kind of fund some internal research and go chase some customer opportunities. And we went to conferences and met some customers and kind of told them what we were building. And that led to getting some contracts with some very interesting intelligence and DoD agencies to do cyber warfare type technology development programs. One of those was with DARPA. And so that led to them getting to meet me. I was transferring within BAE to a different division down in DC. And when they found out about that, they called me and said, hey, heard you might be moving to DC. I was like, yeah, I like literally just decided today I was going to go tell my boss I'm quitting. And he's like, well, how would you be willing to consider coming to DARPA? I was like, as a program manager, because most program managers are in their 40s and 50s and they've got PhDs and they were like a lieutenant colonel in the military and a national reputation. I'm this 30-year-old kid from New Hampshire. I was like, I don't really think that's going to happen. And he's like, no, yeah, we need someone like you. And so yeah, I interviewed and got the job and inherited some projects. And I started some new projects, and that led to a healthy portfolio of programs. And although I'd love to selfishly take credit for it, I really don't think it was much to do with me. And I really think there was some divine providence going on, as well as the fact that there's just not a lot of 50-year-old hackers out there. They tend to be more of a young man's game. And, I'm blessed to be part of a generation that grew up with a PC in the house. when I was young and learning to, use computers at a young age and be in the right place at the right time to have an opportunity where they needed some help and I was able to step in. But that was such a great opportunity because then I got to meet people across the DoD intelligence community and industry, which then kind of led me to be able to start the company pretty easily.
Yeah, so hackers sounds to me like it has a negative connotation, but obviously it's something else as well.
Yeah, I mean, the classical term of hacker is just someone who finds creative solutions that are maybe out of the box ways of thinking about a system or a problem to solve them. So you might say you're hacking around on your car to get it to work, or you're, hack together some wood to make a couch or a chair or something. On a computer, you might hack at something, or as kind of a hack, I glued this together with baling wire and chewing gum to get it up and running. So it has typically meant a bunch of things. Obviously, that also includes the field of people that poke and prod computers to understand their limitations and vulnerabilities, which has led to, the kind of evolving field of exploitation and computers. So terminology for that is a constant battle in the community of what people say. What do you mean by hacker, or the stereotype of a hacker? There's actually a conference called Black Hat, which I attended many, many times in Vegas, and that's because of that is a term that refers to a so-called black hat wearing hacker, i.e. you're on the dark side and you hack into things to exploit them, as opposed to like a white hat hacker, which is someone who is supposed to be on the good side of hacking. So hacking is really just the field of like cybersecurity and attack and defense, but the reason you do that and whether that's legal or not really depends on the details of your implementation. It's kind of like saying football. Like, just because you play football doesn't mean that you're someone who fouls people. It just means you're playing football. And then the details are, what position do you play and how do you play the game? Are you playing it legally and ethically? Are you doing it for money? Are you gambling on the side? Are you hurting people when you do it? Like, I think that's true of every business regime or position, that there's always people that do it well and ethically and people that are breaking the law and doing it for personal gain.
Yeah, I agree. So what would be your best advice for someone who wants to pursue a career in sports tech?
I mean, I can say from my experience, I've had tremendous positive feedback as being a technologist getting in the field. Historically, sports companies were started by people that were athletes or coaches, or the occasional parent or someone who loves sports. And they come at it from maybe a business degree or a physiology degree, and they emphasize the coaching and training aspect. Or they want to build an app and get people to pay to use an app. But I found that because of that tendency, there's a huge opportunity for people that are technology savvy and have deep experience in building technology to actually bring that expertise to the table to complement what's out there today. The biggest thing people ask me as an investor, what I bring to the table is going back into the founder's seat. And I tell them, like, it's 6 letters, CAC LTV, which stands for customer acquisition cost and lifetime value, which is the fundamental of every business. Is every business can get customers. It might cost you 50, I joke with people, I could start a company selling poop on a stick, but it might cost me $1,500 to find one person to buy that for $1. So that's a very bad business to be in, but you could do it. And in sports, a lot of times people will try to build an app that people can download or some simple product, and they're going to get $10 a month. They're going to charge $100 a month, but it costs them 10 times that to land the customer. So 10 months later, that customer many times has dropped off, and maybe they dropped off at 6 months on average, and sometimes they go to a year, but they're never making any money from the business and they end up failing. So I see a lot of sports tech companies as an investor. I think I've done 35 investments in tech companies at this point, and I pass many times because they haven't figured that out. And they don't have the go-to-market model figured out well, and they don't have the CAC to LTV ratio figured out. But if you are either starting a business, you want to start with that premise, say, what's a business that has high lifetime value and low customer acquisition cost? And if you're just going into the field in general, I would say, think about technology as a career path. Immerse yourself in the sports world and be well-versed in the problems. We have a challenge internally. A limited of our engineers have not watched a lot of sports. They're very, very good at technology, but kind of pretty nerdy on the extreme. especially the PhD computer vision types, are like, one of them said, I've never watched a basketball game my entire life. It's like, wow, okay, well, I'm not sure this men's league clip I'm sending you is a perfect exemplar of the sport, but we'll start with what we got.
Yeah.
So if you want to go in that world, but if you can combine both with a knowledge of sports and either playing or watching and understanding the business side with deep technical expertise, then there's a ton of opportunities.
You need to find a nerdy jock. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. They exist. I'm friends with a guy named Enzi who is going for a PhD in computer science, but he also tried to be a pro basketball player in China. And his parents were like, no, you're not going to be a pro basketball player. You need a real degree. So he runs he helps with Chinese Basketball Association and, very sharp. So guys like him, when you find him as an employer, I'm like, you're like a dream candidate for us, PhD who knows the sport that well is just incredibly rare.
Yeah, of course. And yourself, you also played professional quite. You
No,
played
no, I
basketball,
grew
no?
up, I've played recreationally pretty much.
Okay.
Started I was homeschooled. So back then you couldn't even play for a high school. So I really didn't start playing competitively until till college when I was playing intramurals. And then afterwards, when I worked at Lockheed, we joined a company basketball league and I put a team together. And I remember our first year, we didn't do well. And every year we got better and better. And by the end, we went 19-0, won the championship. And that was a lot of fun. So since then, I play probably 4 times a week now. In fact, I'm playing today. I'll have to leave here shortly. I've got a game at noon I run with some other guys. So yeah, I play that, and I'm playing in a competitive men's league that pays $2,000 to the winning team, which is fun. But my whole goal there, putting a team together, was to bring on a bunch of guys who are better than I am, and do my part to be a good team player and play my role, and it works well.
Got it. So yeah, I wouldn't like to keep you from your basketball game. So I have a closing tradition on this podcast, and that is, who from your network do you think would be a good guest for this podcast?
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend my friend Bill Neer from Helios Hockey. I think would be a great fit given your hockey passion and his background as a captain of the MIT varsity team, and now starting a cool company in that space. He'd be my first suggestion, but I certainly know some others as well if you guys are looking for good suggestions.
Yeah, for sure. We can connect offline. Always looking for guests.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to be on Sports Management Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Marcus. It was a pleasure.